would strongly suggest for you to read your privacy policy. Read privacy policy, people. And nowadays you can throw it on Claude or on
Yeah.
ChatGPT and have it like bring the highlights to you. No worries. It's
Remove the
easier.
law speak out of this.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
give it to me in easy and simple terms.
Mhm.
You can totally do that. But the importance is that you understand what the expectations are from the customer point of view,
Mhm.
right? Because a lot of times when we talk about like, let's add a new point of data to our CDP. Okay. Do we have content against that point of data? So if I
Mhm.
collect, I can use to improve your experience in our digital properties. No, we don't. So maybe it's not time to collect that data yet, the data point yet. Let's hold on, right? Because the data privacy policy says that we only collect data that we can use to improve your experience.
Mhm.
No more, no less. Right. And sometimes with marketers, especially, you're like, oh, I want all the data today. Like, oh, let's test everything. More is more. And it's like, well, yes and no, right? Because expectation is that we're going to use this data to improve the experience. And if we don't, then we are not delivering on our promise. Right. So even those things, I was like, let's read it. Let's make sure that we understand that. So a lot of times when we get together to discuss those new points of data, that those are the points that I'm going to bring back. Right. And in a lot of times I'm like, oh, yes, that's right. We need the content. So then they work on the content while we are starting to develop or to collect the data. That's fine too. We can do things in parallel. But then soon enough, we'll have content to then customize your experience in our digital properties using the data you gave us. Right. So those are the two main points, which again,
Mhm.
I know it usually not what the marketers like to hear or not what they do, but it's what can differentiate you. And all that, a lot of the governance, I actually came up with it by discussing with IT, by discussing
Mm.
with the data scientists or the data integration engineers, right? Because any good data integration engineer, when they see that what they do all day long is just to clean data and reconcile data that comes like all messed up because business stakeholders do not bother to not even like try to collect this thing. That's when they're like, okay, that's not the place for me. I
Mhm.
don't want it. No professional would like to spend their time just cleaning data and reconciling data, right? Versus the data comes in as clean as possible. So it's really about connecting new sources of data. It's really about how is it that we can prepare better data sets for reporting? How is it that we can start thinking about being predictive in any way we want? Right. So let's see how much data we need to feed those models, etc. Those are the conversations that usually data integration engineers, data
Mhm.
ops people like to have.
Yeah.
But if they're just dealing with like messy data because marketers cannot bother in tagging their campaigns correctly or fixing a form, right? Then it's harder. It's harder even to develop that relationship, that partnership with those teams, right? So the moment I was like, okay, I understand that. So rest assured that we are going to be the front line to stop like unclean data. We will make the most in our power to make sure that the data come as clean as possible so that we can really go to the next level. That really strengthened our partnership because they're like,
Mhm.
okay, I can count on them. They are partners with us in
Right.
collecting and reconciling and unifying that data. It's not like, oh, you take here and do whatever. We are invested. We have skin in the game.
Mhm. Yeah,
So that
exactly.
also helps a lot. And it helps a lot with analytics teams as well, the teams that are going to put together the dashboards.
Mhm.
Because then they'll come to you and you can say, okay, those are the business rules. This is how the data is collected, right? So business rule, for instance, oh, anytime we have a campaign that is e-commerce, the word e-com will be on the tracking tag. So whenever we talk about e-commerce related campaigns, make sure that we pull the e-com out of the tracking tag, and you're going to be good throughout the many markets, many brands, right? So we document those things, and it makes it their work also much easier. And then it
Mhm.
gets more interesting because we can do the fun stuff, right? The promise of MarTech is really to help marketers and the other stakeholders involved in being more strategic, in being more predictive, right? Nowadays, clean data also feeds systems, right? Like reinforcement learning or AI or casual AI, you name it. All those systems, they need data and they need clean data. Otherwise, it won't make sense. Or you will spend a lot of time cleaning the data in order to make sense, to see if it was worth it. So it's like,
Yeah.
no, right?
Yeah.
Let's make it easier so that we can then realize that value. Oh, we can already be predictive, or we can save money on our campaigns and make our little budget go a little further. All those things. So that's pretty much I would say, the essence of the experimental marketer framework.